Thank you so much for finding time to join us today. My name is Marina Amini. I'm going to go ahead and kick us off because it is 11 o'clock, but I'm sure folks will trail in from the coffee break. It's such a pleasure to introduce you to our panel. I want to just first acknowledge that Ellie Constantine was supposed to facilitate this panel. She had a family situation that pulled her away, but the guests that you see here today and many of the questions and the format really are her brainchild, so I want to quickly acknowledge her for that and thank her for doing that to begin with. If you don't know me, I'm Marina Amini, as I mentioned. I've been in the California community colleges for about 15, 16 years as faculty, as a dean. Now I work for the California Virtual Campus, which is a course sharing technology support program for the entire system, and we support the colleges with a number of different technologies. I'm a parent of 2 students who went through the California community colleges. One of my students has a disability, and he just graduated from college, that student, and he's looking for work. And so it's been a really interesting journey. I'm so excited to hear from what our students will share today and what our industry partners will share today. So I'm going to do some quick bios, introduce them, and then just stop gabbing so you could hear from our amazing guests. On my right here is Eden Campos. She is a lifelong learner, a mother of 5 children, and it took her 40 years to get her degree, and I'll let her fill in some of the details as to why and what the details of her disabilities were and how she was and was not served by the systems of education that we've provided for her. She is a student of Ellie Constantine, and she's currently at West Valley College. She's been both a student and a tutor there. I'm sorry, Mission Valley College, my mistake, thank you. And then I'll go next to Jessica, our other student, sitting on the far end to my right. Jessica Lopez, she has an amazing bio, but I just want to say, like, in my mind, I just think of Jessica as like an influencer, you know? I don't know if that's true. That's kind of how I came about Jessica online. She is a social media influencer and star and expert on many, many topics, but she is currently an honor student at Arizona State University, ASU, completing a bachelor's degree in business administration, and she's going to be graduating this December with summa cum laude, and that's pretty exciting. She worked as a corporate marketing intern at Amazon. She has also had a number of other amazing positions, including earning a scholarship from the Obama administration, a LinkedIn position as well, which I'll let her talk more about. The way I kind of became acquainted with Jessica is on LinkedIn. She is an enormous advocate for online education and the benefits and access that it opens for students with disabilities, and online education is my life. And so that was really our point of connection, and I have followed her growth tremendously, and I'm really, really impressed by her contributions to our field and to our work and to the support that we provide for our students with disabilities. Here next to Eden is Eddie Lin. Eddie started his career at UBS Investment Bank and Goldman Sachs in New York, and then he moved to LA for business school, where he transitioned to marketing at Adobe in San Jose, so lots of partner names there that you've heard. After getting his Master's of Business Administration, MBA, Eddie competed as a contestant on, you ready for this, Fear Factor. Y'all ever, did you eat spiders, or like we'll hear more about that in a bit. Actually, no, he ate 20 live bees. Truth. I can't make that up. And then he joined the entertainment industry in strategy and business development. And actually, he now serves as adjunct faculty at Cypress College. And he founded Nexus Edge Education, which focuses on creating greater access to economic opportunity. And I'll let him talk more about Nexus Edge and his contribution to that field in a bit. And then next to Eddie, we've got Keelan Schul. He is an innovative technology leader and solutions engineer at OpenAI. And he specializes in AI-driven learning solutions within higher ed. He collaborates with institutions to enhance curriculum development, personalized learning experiences, and streamline campus operations. And previously, he spent 12 years in enterprise sales. He is a father of 2, and he's married to a primary care physician, which I thought is a really cool part of your bio as well. So let's give a round of applause and welcome my amazing panelists here. And although I have covered a little bit about the bios, I would love to give each of them a couple of minutes to just talk about, their background, who they are, and a little bit about their organizations as well, if they're representing an organization, or about their student journey. So I'll start with Eden. Go ahead, Eden.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Eden Campos. Good morning, everyone. I'm Eden Campos. I'm going to be reading off my, my paper. It's a product of GPT. And it was the very first time I used it. I have no experience with this AI. And so, because of my disability, I can ramble. I have time blindness, but I'll, read off this first and you'll have a little idea of what I'm going through. Hello, everyone. My name is Eden Campos. I'm currently working as a tutor with students with disability at Mission College here in Santa Clara. I'm also a licensed vocational nurse. My journey on how I became a nurse is another story for another time. My own path to education has been anything but easy. It was utmost challenging. It actually took me 3 attempts and nearly 40 years to get a degree. Along the way, I faced both physical and invisible disabilities. I live with learning and processing disabilities. Which include inattentive ADHD and a little-known disorder called disorder of written expression and other diagnoses. And this, I was diagnosed at the age of 53. So you can imagine not knowing, throughout those years, am I crazy? What's wrong with me? So, let me tell you about my disability. For me, putting my thoughts into written form is one of my biggest challenges. It can take up to 4 hours to put my thoughts into words and then put it into written form, whether paper or on the computer. I always felt defeated, but I never gave up. So if it's just a paragraph, you can imagine what it is with an essay, which is 5 paragraphs. So, but I said, there has to be another way. And thank God there's technology now. With persistence and perseverance, I graduated last year. So, thank you. With honors as summa cum laude with my associate in arts degree. Now I use my experience to support students who also struggle, reminding them that success isn't how fast you get there, but it's about not giving up on yourself. I'm honored to be here today to share with you my thoughts, insights, and experiences with you.
Thank you, Eden.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Eddie Lin. I'm going to give my take from the workforce side of things. So as Marina mentioned, most of my experience comes from industry and Fear Factor. And in 2016, Cypress College asked me to be an adjunct faculty. And then I realized about half my students could have been my colleagues at Goldman Sachs. And we said, how do we prove that? So went back to old colleagues, and the CEO of Citi Venture Capital at the time, her first job out of her PhD at MIT was a middle school biology teacher in New York City. And so we said, all right, let's put together a program where we put together training materials from Citigroup into Canvas, and then faculty have been able to add those materials from Canvas into their class. And students that passed those materials were able to get interviews with Citi. So, part of this whole thing is democratizing access to opportunity, creating greater access. And so if you can do the job, you should get the job, and aligning classroom instruction with what industry is looking for. Turned out those students were the very first ever investment banking intern at JP Morgan without a 4-year degree, Morgan Stanley software engineering, Citigroup risk management. That laid the foundation of these AI programs that we just finished and are continuing. So about 3 months ago, we had a program with HubSpot, it's like Salesforce, and they have an AI program where we asked HubSpot, it was like, well, what sort of skills do you want students to learn right now? And they said, well, we have our AI products for automatically generating blog posts, social media posts, and podcasts. And so we integrated that into Canvas. We had faculty at 48 California community colleges add that to their Canvas shells as part of their curriculum. Students, 300 students, were able to get internships with HubSpot clients, and they all learned AI skills. Some of them continued in their internships following graduation. And after that, that set the foundation for a Google AI program right now, where we've integrated introductory LLM models and Gen AI models and AI Studio, where students generate images, other media, and apps just with a few lines of text. And the top 35 students there will receive a stipend, and that kicks off in about 4 weeks. And all those materials are in Canvas as well. So anyway, to recap everything, we're using Canvas as a delivery channel to align industry training with classroom instruction, and also as a recruiting channel so that students can get the latest AI roles, reducing bias in hiring. So sorry that was a bit long, but all right, Keelan, do your thing, man.
Thanks, Eddie. And now we're going to hear from Keelan.
Hey guys, my name is Keelan Schul, so I'm a solutions engineer from OpenAI. It's a really unique position, and I focus on K-12 through higher education. I get to go on site to campuses and basically teach everybody how ChatGPT can be used, how the models can be used, and how to sort of integrate that with the education journey. My journey to this position, though, is kind of atypical. I work in Silicon Valley, but I was a rural farm kid from middle of Canada growing up. I graduated from bioinformatics at the University of Saskatchewan, then migrated down to the US a couple years back. I've been in sort of the enterprise technology space for a long time, and this is what introed me into AI a couple of years back. I have now 2 kids, and that was now my driver to want to influence the education space. So my oldest right now just entered grade 1. And the thought of knowing that her entire educational journey is going to be altered because of this new technology is fascinating to me. And I want to influence that as much as I can in a very positive way. So that's kind of why I'm here and the driver for me being here.
Hi everybody, I'm Jessica Lopez. I am a student. I was born without hands and feet, as you can see, but I also developed a chronic illness when I was 10 years old that is not related to my physical disability, which completely changed and altered, the course of my life. Before I became chronically ill, I was at a performing arts school. I did singing, dancing, and drama. I was very physically active. I used to ride horses, and my chronic illness completely stopped all of that. And so I ended up graduating high school 4 years later than I should have because of that. The only reason why I was able to graduate was because of the advancement of online education in COVID. I was able to complete 2 years of high school in less than 4 months because I was able to study online, study at a pace that is more efficient for my body, and log off when I'm not able to do that. And that completely changed my life. I found Coastline College, which is an online community college, and really was able to kind of expand my opportunities. I became president of student government, really advocating for the advancement of online education and making sure that it doesn't disappear as we go further and further away from the pandemic. I graduated with 3 associate degrees in 2 years in business, economics, and communications, and then I transferred to Arizona State, which is also online, where I'm advocating for, disability inclusion in general, and making sure that any technology that we use is benefiting people with disabilities, and making sure that people with the most rare disabilities can still access things and have the same opportunity that I was able to get myself as a result of systemic barriers being eliminated through just the way society decided to operate within COVID. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
And I just want to emphasize something from Jessica's bio. She got 3 associate degrees in 2 years. I mean, it's phenomenal. And with the right opportunities, right? The right opportunities, like having the online education available to her during COVID to catch up on her education. So these are really critical things. My next question is for our students a little bit more. I'll start with Eden. Eden, you talked a little bit about your disability. Can you talk a bit about, what are the challenges you faced in your coursework? I know you mentioned writing. Just as a quick preface to that, I just met Eden, in facilitating this panel, and I needed a bio from her. and she was struggling to write. I didn't know about her disability. And so she was struggling to write that bio, and then she called me and we had a 20-minute conversation and I got everything I needed from her. But previous to that, she told me she spent 3 or 4 hours trying to put together a written bio for me, and I had asked her something not knowing of that, disability, but really this alternate form was quicker and it was satisfactory. So Eden, tell me a little bit more, tell us a little bit more about the challenges you faced.
When I first started my college journey, it was way back in the 70s. And at that time, I don't think there was even a word of accommodations. And I struggled with that. Unfortunately, it was futile. That's how I got my nursing degree. I was one course short of getting my bachelor's degree. So I left because nobody understood, because they thought, it's in your mind. That's what my professor said. Time management. But if you think about what ADHD is, that's disorganization and all that. And this newly diagnosed for me was the disorder of written expression. Then a couple years later, in the 90s, now I think it became a word. And fortunately, I came across a blurb on a school schedule from De-Anza that just said, do you have problem taking notes? Do you have problems processing? And that opened my door. And I went to the Learning Center and I got diagnosed. I mean, they told me that there was something there, which I think is an eye-opener, because many of our students don't know that they do have a problem. And I think it's important also for administrators, maybe just put a blurb in your ads to at least go to the DSPS or your disability services to at least have a student, inquire, is there really something wrong? Then after that, unfortunately, due to other circumstances, I had to stop. And then my third chance was admission. And that also opened doors, because by now, technology kind of caught up. And that's when I learned about the Smart Pen, which helped me, okay, I don't have to, because I also have an auditory, processing problem. Just, listening and writing, I can't do that at the same time. So with the Smart Pen, that opened another doors. And then another technology was Kurzweil, because I have difficulty in looking at white print, so there's the dark screen and all that. Other than that, so with all this disabilities that I have encountered, now I also been able to use that knowledge for tutoring my students with the disabilities. I'm known to be very patient, and that's the thing about the invisible, the intellectual disability. Nobody knows. If you talk to me, you wouldn't have known. Even like Marina, she wouldn't have known unless I disclose it. And so amongst your students, I think, we have to be kind of intuitive as to, if you're in class, why is this student struggling? Why are their grades not up to par? They may not know it, but you can at least give them, an opportunity for that. Another thing before I have a student, and this is with talking about maybe policies. Students nowadays, especially like with English, like in English, where they have to write an essay. A lot of us students are using the either chat GPT or just even text, text to speech? Oh no, speech to text. This student is so afraid of putting what was on the phone because of, am I plagiarizing? Because I go, well, that's part of your accommodations. And they said, but my professor says I can't use that. So imagine with that student, that's the only way that student can express themselves. So, please keep in mind that there are, maybe when you have policies and stuff, that there are, even with older adults, we struggle too. So, keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thanks, Eden. And Jessica, tell us a little bit about, obviously you've talked a little bit about your physical disabilities. Even coming here today, we were like, is there gonna be a ramp in the room for her to use? What is the seating situation? Where is the elevator? These are obvious questions that you have to navigate, but tell us more about the coursework and some of the experiences you've had there.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges for online education is you're kind of by yourself. And I think a lot of that is the way professors see online education. They think of it as like Netflix. You just like go and consume content and then you do your homework by yourself and that's how you learn. But there is a wide variety of platforms where you don't have to be learning by yourself. You can use Zoom, you can make your classes synchronous instead of asynchronous. And that's really important in like core subjects where it can be really challenging for a student to learn, like math or English. For me, my hardest subject was math. And so when I was an online student, it was very challenging for me to just like read a textbook and make it make sense. I had too many questions and nobody to ask. Like I could email my professor and like ask him clarifying questions, but I need those answers right now while my brain is in that mode and I can understand it, not like his delayed response like 3 days later. And I think that's one of the most important things about online education, is that there's a way of, having office hours where people can drop in, or having like synchronous Zoom sessions every week. Even if your class is asynchronous, still offering that. My best professors did that, especially like I took remedial math. I was really nervous about that because I do know what online education is like. But my professor would teach us 3 hours a week over Zoom, and I was able to learn that way. But in classes where I wasn't able to have that, I leveraged ChatGPT to be like, this is statistics and I don't understand this math problem. ChatGPT, can you answer my questions? And it would really help me kind of figure out these math problems and show me like, why do I take this path for this math problem versus that path for another problem. And so I think that's really important, is leveraging all of the tools together to make sure that you're like building a classroom that is holistic, and also thinking about how disabilities go into it as well. When I was younger, captioning was not really a thing. I'm hard of hearing, and so I need captioning in order to kind of keep up and follow. But like when I was younger, like if you watch TV, captioning wasn't really available. But over time, as things have gone more progressive, and especially AI has been around, captioning is more widely available than ever before, and so professors can leverage AI tools to create captioning that is accurate and, can show the inflection point of people's vocals and give all of that context for people who are hard of hearing who need that. And I appreciate my professors who put that effort into it, because I do know it takes time, but that makes the difference between a student who can actually learn and a student who has to drop their class and try to find another professor willing to give them what they need.
Thanks, Jessica. All right, so Keelan and Eddie, you've heard Jessica and Eden talk a little bit about some of their challenges. Where do you see industry partners coming in, potentially using AI to support some of these needs?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind is like personalization, and what you brought up, that bringing a lot of tools coming together is super important. I get a chance to go to a lot of campuses around the U.S. and sort of like hear from teachers, professors, like what are they trying to solve and what can they help with, and a lot of it comes down to that there's like edge case where students can't either understand the curriculum, they can't interact with it, and that's where AI can really make a huge play. About 3 years ago, when it was only text-based, it didn't really do as much. But now that you can talk to the models, you can send images to the models, you can generate captions, translation between languages. There's so much that can be used for to really kind of close the gap to make like any learner be able to manipulate the curriculum a little bit to better suit their needs. Because I think a lot of course material is sort of like a retrofit for accessibility after. So here's material, and then we'll like add in things to make it accessible for everybody. But if we can have AI in the beginning, I think it changes that a lot, and now it doesn't put the onus on just like faculty to alter the curriculum, but now students have tools to better understand and interpret and be able to like work with that. And I think it's that the real kind of benefit or the win there is that students don't feel like they're an exception anymore, that it's the course is built with them like in mind. And I think if we can have AI inside of the course material early enough, that's really what it changes. Another part that we hear is around like using technology, not so much just like using AI to understand course material, but let's say you got assigned an online course and you've never been logged into Canvas before. You can use like ChatGPT to tell you how to use Canvas in order to learn the material. It's like these steps along the way of not just learning the material, it's really, really beneficial for any learner, regardless of like what it is that they might struggle with. It could be executive function or some other kind of form like that. But those are some pretty big areas that we hear a lot, and a really big part of that is like how do we like personalize that learning experience to like allow that student to really drive their journey.
I really like your comment on personalization too, especially because one of the challenges that Jessica outlined is maybe one that we don't think about with disabled students who are taking online classes, which is a little feeling of isolation, right? And feeling that you're just sort of this added on person in a classroom. So appreciate that.
Yeah, and on the workforce side, we're in an era where 5 lines of natural language text has really closed the gap between jobs that were considered very high paying and those who were just entering the workforce. For example, we had that program I mentioned with HubSpot. There was a student from Irvine Valley College, 19 years old. The company he was interning for, they replaced their digital marketing agency with this kid, and they started paying him $330 an hour. At 19, they capped him at $10,000, but he essentially replaced a UI UX designer, an expert in cybersecurity, in content for cybersecurity, and another web designer. And so, yeah, AI is he didn't have to be an expert in any of those areas, but he knew how to write those prompts. That's 5 lines of text, really. And the apps are being developed using AI Studio, using Google Gemini now too. So students with disabilities, as with speech to text and everything like that too, and even if you have ADHD, the prompts, they suggest prompts for you to help clean that up to write really effective apps. So now, I don't know if you've played with any of those like app generation things, but you can launch an app with 5 lines of text, go get some coffee, come back, and you'll have an AI app already done for you. And this has already been done within the California Community College system that we've deployed. So now you have a whole variety of high-paying roles that are available to students now to close the gap between those with 20 years of experience. So I guess for all of us in the room, let's be happy that all of our students have the opportunity to receive really high-paying jobs. For folks with 20 years of experience, I guess better learn those things. So that's where we are in the age of generative AI and the jobs that are associated with them.
And if I can add to like as students are entering their career journey, there's a big gap tended to be where like interviewing skills isn't there, or role playing. So if I'm going to business school, I want to like get asked questions back and forth. How can I do that? And let's say if you have somebody that's from a business school that can actually do your questions, you tend to print paper, answer them down there. It's not really like a realistic scenario. And now with like the ability to talk to the models, and you can create like a custom GPT with instructions that says a persona. So that's an interviewer for Goldman Sachs, and I'm going to be interviewing for this position. Ask me questions as if that persona. That sort of like angle, I think, really accelerates like individuals to be able to get into their career a lot faster than they otherwise would. It just really prepares them ahead that they would never been able to do ahead or before that.
I do want to add to that because it's such an excellent point too, is the number of students that would ask me for interview tips, it was not scalable. And if you look at the ratio of students to career services advisors, it's like 30,000 to 5, right? So it's not possible. But because of speech to text generative AI, we are actually putting this on our development timeline right now too, is that you can actually record yourself with so many of those video tools now, answering those predefined interview questions, and that can be transcribed into text that we feed into our Gemini model that comes up with personalized suggestions back on how they can get feedback to their specific interview questions at their specific companies. And that's helped a lot of students with disabilities because often they're a bit too shy to say, hey, you know what, they're afraid to come out and look for help. But if you're just sitting in the comfort of your own home, just recording yourself and watching the text come back, you can create a level of personalized interview improvement that wasn't possible before. So that's helped a long-standing issue both within career services and provided an opportunity for students with disabilities to get feedback that normally they wouldn't normally seek out.
Can I ask a clarifying question about that? So my son, as I mentioned, graduated. He has a degree in computer science, but he's on the spectrum, so he really struggles with social skills, and the interviews are really tripping him up. He feels really unprepared, so I love hearing some of the preparation. Now, I get the prompts, and I get the questions and posing as an interviewer. That's great. Will the AI also provide feedback on, like, make more eye contact, don't nod your head a lot, turn your shoulders to face the person, don't make noises, because sometimes there's just noises or clicks that people make with disability. Like, is that something that the machine can help the human with?
It can now, which is
Okay.
pretty fascinating. So if you have like ChatGPT on your phone and you click on this voice mode button, you'll see a little camera icon, and the camera icon now sends video. And basically it sends like frame by frame to the models to assess it. So really quick movements it might not capture, but the
Okay.
general body language of like sitting upright and being slouched, hand-eye coordination, that kind of stuff, it can generally pick up on and can really like guide that person through it. It's kind of been fun. So last night in my hotel room, I was talking to my chatbot on these questions because I wanted to like run through them, and I had the video on as well, and it gave me some tips of like looking at audience members, and so I think it can really kind of drive like those social personal skills that it's kind of struggling unless if you've been through it a lot, you don't know how to learn that.
Okay. So my next question, I'll take it back to the students. I mean, you've heard about these great tools and resources available for students. Thinking about your own journey, right? Because you've gone through the community colleges and you're both now in the workforce as well. You're making a living. What sorts of things do you wish were in place for you earlier in your journey from the get-go to enable your success as a student? Eden, go first, please.
I wish I had all of this, because as I said earlier, I mean, from the 70s to present, it's just like overwhelming. And especially with older adults, I have, with my students too, just even getting, online on Canvas is daunting. And there really isn't, maybe there's a tutorial, but then after that, it's like, where? So, I think maybe in part of the curriculum, maybe in the beginning of the, your first day, say, okay, those who have problems with Canvas or whatever system you use, you can find, we have a tutorial, you can find it. They are offering workshops, but not everyone can go to the workshop. So have that as a facility for students. Also, as I was going through attending this, I had no experience at all, or even I'm intimidated with AI. And I go, how does this work? It was funny the other day, someone said about, I'm from the generation of Arnold Schwarzenegger, the Terminator, about what they're gonna do. But, after talking to a lot of people here, I kind of eased in. And that's why I was amazed my very first time with my introduction. And I said, oh, I wish I had this. And then with this knowledge, I will be able to help my students. And with the information that Keenan gave, it will like, wow, it's just mind-blowing. So, but as I said, it's also, in the school, you have to, let's keep up with the times. Is a lot of schools, yes, haven't gone up or haven't accepted it yet. And this information I found out from the pre-conferences, that a lot of schools, colleges have not been on board yet. So, it's time to help, our students.
And I just want to clarify, when she says it's my first time using it, like literally she just started using ChatGPT like this morning. Okay. And if you came in a little bit later, you missed her describing that it could take her like 4 hours to write a paragraph. That's part of her disability. And so she was able to put the questions that I had given her in advance into ChatGPT, and it helped her to write out some of her responses to keep organized. So that's sort of what she's talking about. Literally between our call on Sunday and today, you learned to use ChatGPT. Fantastic.
As my problem is with time management, and part of ADHD is what they call time blindness. I think a lot of people with ADHD, it's a time blindness is I have no orientation. Maybe that may also be a problem with some of your students that are chronically late. I can prepare at 6 o'clock for my class that's at 10 o'clock, and I am still late. I don't know what. And a friend of mine said real quickly, she says, Eden, what's taking you so long? I go, I'm going as fast as I can. No, you're in slow motion. What people perceive in me, they see slow motion. For me, I am just all over the place. So just a heads up on that.
Thanks, Eden. Jessica, tell us a little bit about your journey and what you wish was in place maybe from the beginning.
I think one of the things that people might be surprised about to hear about me is the fact that, like, I didn't consider myself disabled. You look at me, and I'm probably the most disabled person you'll ever think of, right? I don't have hands and feet. It's very visible. You use a wheelchair. There's a lot of limitations. What can you do? What can't you do? But I didn't consider myself disabled. I thought of myself as somebody who's like, I'm not limited by, whatever it is that I can do. I can write physically. I can draw. I can do all those things independently. And I've learned to come into my identity as a person with a disability and not see it as a bad thing. But it took a long time to get there, and it took a lot of, negative learning of what disability is through all of our life, just the narrative that we hear of disability and what that looks like and the limitations, and just seeing people with disabilities sometimes as lesser than or just not as capable. And all those things kind of bleed into whether or not someone feels comfortable with identifying as a disability and having a disability. And you can have, a physical condition or, learning disability and know that you have a limitation, but still not identify as a disabled person. So that was a big thing for me. And once I kind of got that, I'm disabled. I'm part of a community of over 1 billion people with disabilities all over the world. That's a powerful thing to be able to identify yourself as, to know that there are people who have created every technology that we have experienced. People with disabilities who have created touch phones, keyboards, iPhones, bicycles. Those are all created by people with disabilities, shaping their world to work with their bodies. And that's a powerful thing to know, that all of our society has been shaped by people with disabilities. So my answer to the question is that I think a lot of students don't identify themselves as disabled. They don't go into disability services offices. They don't recognize they have disabilities or even get diagnosed with it until later on in life because of the stigma or the inaccessibility or whatever it is that's surrounding them. I think that the first touch point is knowing that you have like a place where you can go to get those supports, and then knowing that your life isn't over if you are disabled or you discover you're disabled later on in life, especially like me. Like, I have physical disabilities, I have invisible disabilities, I developed some disabilities later on in life, I was born with others. Those are different experiences. So I think the biggest thing is that students have to know that there's a community for them on campus. They have to know that there's other disabled students like them. That's the first touch point. They're never going to move past and get the accommodation they need if they don't know what's available for them, and know what can be adapted to them and the accommodations that are even available for them. And once they do get those, building that community of knowing other people who have disabilities and getting to know how they navigate the world, that's really important, to know that they're not isolated by themselves, to know that their identity as a person with a disability is just as important as their identity as a woman or a black person or a Hispanic person or a first-generation student, and seeing it as a source of empowerment and a source of community that contributes to our society and to our schools. So I think it's really important to see accessibility as something as a community builder. You're not seeing it as just like following the law and like avoiding a lawsuit. You're seeing it as bringing in your students and giving them a place to be in and be who they are.
I love this. Like, let's stop thinking of accessibility as a compliance problem and thinking of it as a way to build community. I love that. I think I will take that back with me. Thank you, Jessica. All right, Keelan and Eddie. So let's talk a little bit about the career piece, because I think we touched on this. It's definitely an interest of mine. So now you've got a kid like my son in a job. He got the job. He got past the interview thanks to your AI tools. And there's all this like workplace stuff that requires social skills, right? There's power dynamics, there's salary negotiation, there's asking for a promotion, there's saying no to your boss, there's dealing with problematic coworkers, there's taking credit for your work, there's taking credit for other people's work. There's all of these things that happen in the workplace that I know you all don't know anything about that, right? For a student with disabilities like my son has, this can be really challenging. Can AI help a student like him, or just in general, other students in the career and workplace?
Yeah, so I wanted to add, so we create training modules with companies of all different varieties, and actually the most popular ones are actually those around durable soft skills, actually. So I think those are massively underestimated. In fact, the most popular training module we've deployed throughout the entire California community college system is Google's sending professional emails. Like nothing about like technical anything. And I started asking faculty, it's because they felt like their students can't write emails. It's been assigned over 100,000 times. And so that, I feel like, and then when you talk to the HubSpot managers of those companies, they say the biggest challenges that they have with the students is not technical. It's always something related to those durable skills too. So certainly we have those training materials, and that isn't even related to AI there, but now we're in an era where they can get more interactive feedback as well. So certainly the themes have been popular for a while. Employers have been on board and struggling with that for a while. And now, in addition to the training materials that we've had for a long time, they're able to get more interactive, personalized feedback. So I'm glad that came up as well, because it's such a critical issue.
And I think the need to learn AI is also really important. A lot of the companies and enterprises that OpenAI works with, they are specifically hiring new grads that have AI experience. So to teach it early, to be able to better promote them, so not just like using AI to get the job, but also being able to use AI as a skill like you might have for productivity is super important. We see that across every industry. It's not just education, right? It's any workforce that people are going into. If two people have the same technical skills, but one has more AI use and experience, they're likely going to get further along the interview process just because of that alone. And then that can also lean into like the soft skill development and like wellness of that person going through these processes.
Is it possible if I can hop in on this question
Yes,
as well?
please.
I had an internship this summer at Amazon as a marketing specialist in internship, and I was actually interning to market our internship program. So I'm an intern telling students to come to Amazon and intern with us, which is a great opportunity, and it has a lot of application to the fact that we're going into schools and telling students like you have opportunities at Amazon. One of my big summer projects was to build a global disability inclusion marketing strategy. So thinking about how can we bring in disabled students into Amazon and tell them that you have a place here. Up to 30% of students with disabilities live with disabilities all over the world, and so that's a big 1 in 3 students can potentially have disabilities, and so companies need to know how to recruit those students and show them that they have a place there. And my internship was it was on a global team, so we had team members all over the world, in China and India and Europe. One of the big projects that I worked on was thinking about how can we make our internship applications more accessible so that students can come in and apply and not have any barriers. And so one of the things that I was working on was digital accessibility and how we can make our platform more accessible for people with like screen readers, and making things more accessible for people who have like processing disabilities. And one of the big barriers that I found was that none of our pages had alt text. And so if you don't know what alt text is, it's an image description hidden behind the image so that if someone uses a screen reader, they can know what the image is, and it tells them what they're looking at if they can't visually see it because they have a blindness. And so we had over, I believe, like 30 different pages and then like dozens of images on each web page. And so I went through and I audited it, and I found that none of them have alt text. So if a student with a disability is trying to apply to Amazon, they're not going to be able to go through and actually navigate that. And so my proposal was to go through and how to remediate the problem so that students with disabilities are not experiencing barriers all along that pipeline of like learning about Amazon internship programs all the way through to actually applying and getting the interview and getting the offer. And so my estimate originally for remediating the issue was it would take probably about 4 months for it to go through all the pages and create alt text and images. Halfway through my program, my internship, I was like, maybe there's another way to do this. And so I was looking through all of the learning models that we have and all of the AI agents that we have at Amazon, and found that there was actually an alt text image generator. Like it creates alt text, you put in an image, it will give you an image description. I was like, this is amazing. Like maybe this 4-month process that I was handing over to somebody else because my internship wasn't long enough to do it myself, I could do it myself. And so I ended up feeding all of the images into this AI agent and putting it through. What ended up being originally estimated as a 4-month process ended up taking a week. This is the power of accessibility and using AI to make things accessible. This experience was the same thing that you can use in your classes, in all of the things that you do. If you have a website and you're at a school, students have to use your portal to apply to your classes. They have to use Canvas to use your platform. And if you don't have inner descriptions, it can be really scary to learn how to write them. You can use AI to help you do that and remediate those issues before a student has to complain, before they have to ask you to fix it. You can make sure that it's already there so that they don't have to request it afterwards. And that's the power of accessibility. Thinking about how we can change accessibility so that you don't have to fix things afterwards. And I think that's really important to learn how to do it and show other students how to do it. And so when they go into internships like at Amazon or Google or whatever they want to do, they learn how to do that too.
All right.
Can I jump in there?
Yes, a couple questions, and then I want to open it to the audience. So if you have a couple questions, think about it. All right, let's hear from actually Eden was first, and then we're going to hear from Keelan. Is that okay? Go ahead, Eden, you first. Go ahead. It's okay. Yeah.
This is a very big learning experience, and talking about careers, I've always wanted to be an educator, but the part of that intimidates me is, writing the plans, your curriculum, what you need to do in subjects, all that. I have all the knowledge here about nursing, but how am I going to put it into writing? And it's just like, yesterday, the other day, it was so eye-opening that I could be able to just speak it and just tell the bot, a chatbot, whatever, I don't even know the terminology yet, and tell them that this is what I want. So imagine that is like a whole thing of opening the doors. So you can imagine what it is for students. The other thing is I feel like, that when developers, and even educators, administration, have that in mind, with your students in how do you say it, in developing, your curriculum also, what is being offered. Maybe because of AI, open up for maybe a general, part of the general requirements. Have someone develop an AI, just intro, so that we can be up to par.
Thanks, Eden. Keelan.
I was just going to add to the alt text comment. So we see a lot of initiatives using the models for writing code to fix like websites that are not WCAG compliant. And I think it's a fascinating use case because the models are really good at writing code. So you can have somebody inspect through it, and there's a lot of accessibility like checkers. But then if you have the models on the side that help you rewrite the code and drop in these alt text, you can go through thousands of pages of online, like you said, in a week instead of months. Mm-hmm. So I think keep that in mind as you're producing these technologies. Use the models, not just asking questions, but actually do some of the development for you because it shortcuts a ton of work.
Fantastic. All right, we have time for a couple of questions. There's a hand up here. Go ahead, and I'll repeat it in the microphone. How do we find the trainings in Canvas?
What school are you? What college? Oh, okay. Yeah, so we've been actually working with Shasta College and trying to work with the region to get our app installed within Canvas. So if you could help with that, just connect. It's just once it's there, then your whole campus can just see all the materials we just talked about. There's a few intro to Gen AI content that have been added to everything from like ESL to agriculture to urban farming. So there's a good amount of applicability there. I think we should just sync up afterwards too.
All right, other questions? Yes, in the front.
We're trying to establish an institutional accessibility support center on my campus to help faculty, staff, and students learn skills, tools, and maybe technology to help them make accessibility remediation faster, but also to design with accessibility in mind. Does anybody in the room have a tool for creating captions quickly and accurately for video content?
Creating captions quickly, and I'm using PowerPoint, and you can see it's not very accurate. I think it when Keelan introduced himself, it put you down as Kieran Schultz, so it completely missed your name, by the way. All right, let's hear suggestions for captioning.
I mean, I can tell you what we're doing right now because we have to be compliant with that. Is that as far as major models go for transcribing speech to text, and Google's unique in that because they own YouTube and they transcribe a lot of the text within video into text, what's being spoken in the video. So we do have to check that manually as well, but you just have your interns watch all the videos too. But hey, they learn stuff. But along the way, I think, since all the models have come out, I feel like YouTube's speech to text have improved a lot as well. So you do have to do some double checks. But I feel like that is probably one of the easier ways to be compliant. If you use Vimeo for your content, there are ways where you can have that manually transcribed as well. So there's a couple ways to go at it, depending on which video player that you use and how much time and resources you want to put into it.
Kind of stole my answer. I think it depends on the source and platform that you want to use for that one. Like internally at OpenAI, we use our models to break apart a video, take out that audio transcript, and then we run it through our text to or speech to text model effectively that generates the text for us. That's not something that you can just turnkey. It's a development process, but we do see a lot of platforms engaging with the models to do that kind of activity. And that's where like a really good accuracy comes into play. Like the fact that this one messed up my name shouldn't do that. And if you have a model that's like plugged into like your SIS system, for example, and it knows who the speakers are, then it should be able to translate better because it has more context of what's actually happening. And I think that's where we're going to see a lot of these translation apps go towards, is have a better understanding of who's speaking, and then when they transcribe, it has a more context of what it's transcribing to.
Speaking of that, I went to my son's graduation in May, and the students that were graduating, how they always mangle the names, especially the names that are not American sounding names or English names, right? So the students said their names into a microphone, like behind a curtain, and then an AI voice that sounded like a white male speaking standardized English would then replay that. And so none of the names were mangled, but it was interesting that they still had to sort of put it in his voice. There was still this standardization that was happening. Great questions. We have time for one more before I let you out to go grab your lunches. Yes, back there.
So maybe everybody's sick of talking about RSI, but this question of regular substantive interaction, which is required of our online courses, especially the accreditation. I'm just curious, what are your thoughts of whether or to what extent AI can help or hinder that requirement for regular substantive interaction between the teachers?
Yeah, and just for some context, RSI, regular substantive interaction, is an accreditation requirement. It's a federal requirement for asynchronous online courses. And so what we're finding is it's hard to show that level of engagement in our asynchronous online courses. So how does AI help us with that? That's your question. Or not, or hinder that. How about our students? Any thoughts about engagement in your asynchronous online courses? I know, Jessica, you've taken a lot, and you've probably seen the gamut of engagement in those classes.
Yeah, I think one of the big things is AI shouldn't replace that contact with the professor. And I think it's really easy to think of it that way because that one of the first things that we hear about AI is that it's a time saver. And one of the big time-consuming things is like communication, especially if you're writing things. And so I think that's one of the biggest things is making sure that you're not over-automating your processes, and that if you are automating, that you're auditing what you're automating. Just because if you're not like double checking what you're creating, it can come out completely inaccurate, it cannot have the right context, or it might not actually be appropriate for what that student needs. Students with disabilities have so many different kinds of disabilities, both from learning disabilities to physical disabilities, and it's going to present in different ways. Even if you have someone with the exact same disability, certain students will have the ability to do one thing and the other student won't, even if they have that same disability. And so I think the other thing is that when you are building anything for students, is actually testing it with students with disabilities. You have to make sure that anything that you're creating has that voice from students themselves and from people with disabilities themselves. Otherwise, you're not getting that authentic lived experience, and you're going to find there's a lot of gaps that you hadn't really thought about just because you can't replicate that lived experience without having it yourself. I hope that helps.
That's great.
I did
Eddie?
want to add real quick the perspective as an adjunct there too, which most of the college's faculty are. We get a lot of questions from students, so I would just drive like an hour or something, and then I have 5 emails from students. So I wouldn't worry. I wouldn't worry so much that faculty are going to lean on a bot or something too much. I actually think it helps because there's more questions than most faculty I feel can answer, especially since most are adjuncts. So while I think you do need to monitor and make sure the RSI is going to be okay, I actually think that it helps more than hinders. Granted, we do need to see more of how this is going to play out, but I actually I think it's going to help students more than it hurts.
I attempted to work with a vendor partner and I failed, but this is what we would like to see in a tool. As a faculty member, if I could log into my online class and then get a little nudge Marina, be careful. Your student Keelan has not been engaged and has not opened his assignments. It's been 3 weeks. You might want to check on him. You might want to also, check on Eden because, she only interacts with one person in the classroom, another student. She might need to be put in a group where she could learn more about her peers. Something like that. If AI could be my friend in the classroom to help me. I don't know. That's just the thought for our partners.
Oh, we have an AI friend for faculty now. It was actually designed by a De-Anza student. It is a rodent named Cappy. So for those of you who know what capybaras are, world's largest rodent. And to make it, we talked about how to make it not fearful. So we asked our intern from De-Anza what would be the best mascot for this chatbot. She said capybara. So now living within Canvas, you can ask your capybara questions about, hey, what fits within my course that they wouldn't normally know, because we can get data from the other campuses. Why would anybody know that an ESL class in Santa Ana College used HubSpot, how to create a professional LinkedIn profile? Or in Irvine Valley College, they use Google sending professional emails in another ESL class. So let's say College of the Siskiyous, I think somebody would want to know that too, and then the world's largest rodent could advise you on that in Canvas. So that's one way, I guess, we're creating a friendly faculty advisor.
So we are at time. It's 11:57. Would it be okay if we stuck around in case audience members want to come here and chat with us? So could I just get a round of applause for our amazing panelists? Thank you so much, and enjoy your lunch. And we will stick around if folks want to come up and talk individually with our amazing panelists.